This guy is known as the Brave Killer. By bathing in the blood of a dragon, he possesses immortal power. The dragon's bones were also taken to forge his sword. In every battle, he is always the focus of attention. But in the end, it was that arrogance that brought him trouble. From a celebrated hero, he became a criminal of a country. Who is that guy really, and what will ultimately become of him? Let's find out in a super production on the topic of ancient war titled Hagen Valley Nibelung. The film begins with the scene of the King of Burgundy leading troops to pursue foreigners. Recently, their land has been frequently harassed by foreign invaders. They are cruel, killing everywhere they go. Every village they passed was wiped out. People suffered from door to door. Facing the power of the Burgundy army led by the king, the pagans had to retreat to their own land. However, their conspiracy to invade this new land is still cherished. During the pursuit, Hagen, General of Burgundy, discovered an abnormal horse. Before he could realize anything, a foreigner on that horse suddenly ambushed the king. The whole country, which was rejoicing in victory, was now covered in sorrow. Shortly thereafter, the eldest son of the dead king, Gunter, succeeded his father. Because he was young and less experienced, Hagen would have to guide him. Hagen is a talented general of Burgundy with a record of hundreds of battles. In the past, Hagen was found by the king on Dragon Island, the legendary residence of the beast. From an early age, Hagen revealed the qualities of a warrior. He passed all the harshest tests. Finally, after enduring extreme trials, Hagen was recognized by the king. Since then, he has been trained to become the king's most loyal guard. Hagen once vowed absolute loyalty to the king of Burgundy. After the king died and the crown prince ascended the throne, he continued his mission of protecting the throne. To protect the country against enemy forces, Hagen focused on training soldiers. However, their forces are limited. No matter how good their fighting skills are, it is difficult to overwhelm the enemy's numbers. Therefore, the king sought an alliance with surrounding lands. To create that alliance, they had to arrange a marriage. Gunter has a younger sister who has come of age. The princess would be offered to the king of a neighboring land. If that alliance is created, they would not have to worry about foreign threats. Although she did not want to marry someone worthy of her father's age, for the sake of the country, the princess was forced to agree. At this time, a group of self-proclaimed warriors appeared outside the city. Their leader was Siegfried, who claimed to be a dragon killer. Everyone knows the dragon is a legendary creature that lived centuries ago. To this day, whether they still exist is unknown. But the story of Siegfried killing a dragon and bathing in its blood had spread throughout the regions he passed. Some even said that the sword in his hand was made from dragon bone. Moreover, he became immortal after bathing in the dragon's blood. However, looking at his appearance, no one thought he was a dragon warrior. Siegfried claims to be a descendant of the Xanten clan. Because he did not like to be tied down by the throne and wanted a free life, he left. Siegfried is a straightforward man who does not value formalities. He often immersed himself in feasting with his subordinates. He recounted stories from the lands he had set foot in, creating a sense of curiosity for the listeners. He told of a cold northern land where a volcano never extinguishes. Strangely, the foot of the mountain is covered with ice. In addition, there exist picturesque, rich lands. The queen there is a strong warrior. Her army could defeat the devil, which made many people want to know who she was and come to propose. He had been there and was defeated by her, but luckily kept his life. Siegfried's boasting did not interest Hagen at all. Because he first met Gunter, he wanted to challenge him. The two would compete for the gold throne. Hagen, of course, did not allow this, because he did not trust that person. Siegfried could stay in the city, but Hagen would always keep an eye on him. Siegfried's disorganization made many people uncomfortable. Hagen realized this and reminded him to behave. Also there, Hagen discovered a black hooded figure who often escaped. That guy also appeared in his dreams. He said he knew Hagen's identity and the cause of his scars. Because that person's movements were very mysterious, Hagen still let him escape. In this city, Siegfried began to cause trouble. The princess's horse suddenly became aggressive after he appeared. It jerked the rope and ran wild, and no one could stop it. The princess chased the horse. Hagen could not let her go alone. When the white horse stopped, the princess approached it again, but suddenly it jumped up and caused her to be injured. Before she could confront Siegfried, she found him getting drunk with Gunter. It turned out that Gunter was interested in Siegfried's straightforward personality and had invited him. But Siegfried took advantage of the situation. He not only considered Gunter his brother, but also dared to enter the princess's room. Hagen warned Siegfried many times, but he still overstepped. Since Siegfried came here, Hagen had always been curious about his true identity. Adding to that, a mysterious person in a black shirt constantly harassed him, forcing him to find out who he was. Hagen was stunned to see that person's appearance. It reminded him of many years ago, when humans and other tribes lived together in harmony. This included the dwarf clan, who possessed mysterious magical power. However, many years later, due to disagreements, the two sides went to war. The end. Humans won and erased the dwarf clan along with their residents. Only a few dwarfs were still alive, but they lived hidden without contact with the outside world. Hagen suspected Siegfried himself was leading the dwarf clan here, but he did not have time to investigate that. While Hagen was training the army, a person was discovered spying on them. After investigation, he learned that the incident was caused by foreigners. They took advantage of Burgundy's change in leadership to gather troops at the border to prepare for an invasion. But Gunther had just sat on the throne and had no experience leading battles. Apart from Hagen, no one could take this responsibility. Siegfried said that he would join Hagen's army. They had eaten a lot in the castle for many days, so they had to do something in return. Siegfried's skill on the battlefield helped them against the enemy and gained him countless supporters. Before the battle, Hagen accidentally heard information about him. It turned out that Siegfried lived by fighting as a mercenary. He arrived in lands and asserted his strength there. Once he had enough reputation, he would leave without saying goodbye. This would also happen to Burgundy. Currently, people were putting their faith in an immortal dragon slayer. Soon, he would win the trust of everyone. At that time, Gunther's throne would waver. Hagen, though foreseeing this, could not stop it. What he cared about before that battle was that the princess came to see him. For a long time, Hagen had always secretly liked the princess, and she had also realized it. But because of his status and responsibility, Hagen could only silently stay by her side, observing her every day. Just seeing the princess happy made him feel happy too. The princess was still waiting for a revealing word from Hagen, but he knew he was not allowed to overstep his limits, so he chose to remain silent. Because Hagen was an experienced commander, he would command this battle. He knew the enemy's weakness was their lack of discipline. Taking advantage of that, his well-organized army would be more dominant. This time, he also brought Gunther's younger brother to familiarize him with the battlefield. But on the battlefield, Siegfried showed his extravagance. During the night, he rode his horse alone into the enemy squad. The enemy general led the army to fight, but upon meeting Siegfried, he was immediately struck down. The next morning, Siegfried brought his head back like a trophy. After that, he called on people to take the initiative and attack the enemy's industry, because they had lost their general like a snake without a head. Hagen's firm and careful plans were considered to have failed. Seeing his subordinates joining the battle, he could not ignore it either. The army fought spontaneously, which was an advantage in the forest, especially in foggy conditions. However, Hagen's squad became separated. Single combat had never been the advantage of Hagen's army. Gunther's brother on his first campaign was easily struck down. Even his close subordinates were easily killed. It was a huge shock for Hagen. He took a blow to the face, which left him burning with rage. That blow made him completely lose his fighting strength. When he was about to be killed, Siegfried arrived and saved his friend. In this battle, Siegfried performed very well. The whole battlefield seemed to be his stage. The fact that he showed his immortal ability made the soldiers' morale boil over. In the end, the pagans had to withdraw after seeing Siegfried fight. He returned to a victory welcome from the people. The princess now also favored him, completely charmed by Siegfried. It felt like in the eyes of the people at this time, there was only him. And Hagen was lying on a stretcher, unknown whether he would live or die. While Siegfried celebrated right before the bodies of the soldiers who had died, he said doing so was so that they could also feel the victory of the battle they had fallen in. To save Hagen, Siegfried suggested to the princess that they find a dwarf whose techniques could help Hagen return from death's door. After torturing Hagen with all the pain from physical to soul, he finally dragged him back from death's gate. During the time Hagen was nursing his wounds, the princess was always with him to take care of him, though he didn't know it. Thanks to Siegfried, he learned how much the princess cared for him. He also had to thank him for saving his life. But Hagen did not know the princess had taken a liking to Siegfried. His victory had charmed not only the princess, but the people of the whole country. Hagen had not yet been able to warn about the danger of Siegfried when the princess was kidnapped. After 3 days and 3 nights, the two returned together, and Siegfried decided to propose to the princess. With his recent feat, he completely had that chance. Hagen did not want that to happen, but could not find any objections. Fortunately, Gunther still respected Hagen's words, so they set conditions. Although they had just won against the pagans, it did not mean their land was safe. Therefore, they needed to find a solid alliance. Siegfried had once told of the queen of a land he had been to. It was a cold land covered by ice all year round. Gunther would create an alliance by arranging a marriage. He will come to propose to the queen of the icy land. The condition is that Siegfried will guide them. This will prove the words he said before. Very quickly after that, they set sail to ask for the queen's hand for the king. However, Siegfried also warned that it would be a difficult journey. In addition to facing storms, they would face bone-chilling cold. The storms that came suddenly in the night sank their boat. When Hagen regained consciousness, he found himself on the shore. The boat had been wrecked by hitting the rocks. The first thing he did was to search for the king. Fortunately, Gunther survived that storm. And Siegfried was obviously familiar because he had been here before. They quickly set out for the queen's residence. On the way, they encountered troops guarding the land. It seemed that everyone who wanted to meet the queen must go through challenges. They had to be blindfolded so they could not know the way in and out of the territory. When the blindfolds were removed, in front of them were hundreds of skulls. According to the queen's bodyguard, these were the heads of those who had come to propose to her. It turned out that the prerequisite for proposing to the queen was to defeat her. The outcome for those who failed was to have their heads placed there. Siegfried had once asserted that with his own ability, Gunter could not beat her. Hagen had advised him to give up, but Gunter was determined. To help Gunter achieve the goal, Siegfried told him about the help of the dwarf. That is why they had brought him on this trip. Before the match took place, the dwarf performed a magic spell. It helped Gunter to have the combined power of Hagen and Siegfried. The condition for winning was to cause the queen's blood to fall on the snow. If it was Gunter's blood, he would die. As soon as the match started, Gunter showed that he was not able to win. He was quickly struck on the head. However, after becoming accustomed to the combined power, he had the opportunity to counterattack the queen. The sudden change in the situation before their eyes made the queen's bodyguard worried. But the queen's true strength helped her quickly regain the upper hand. Until, looking into Gunther's eyes, she saw the presence of Siegfried within them. Then, the queen launched an attack, but Gunter managed to gain the advantage. Finally, the victory belonged to Gunter. Of course, he would become the new king of this land. Everyone would have to bow to him. The entire land of the queen would then follow Gunter back to Burgundy. At this time, the pagans were raging on their land. They killed and plundered everywhere, causing people to fall into panic. Despite the queen's alliance, they had a problem. The queen's army was led by her and only obeyed her orders. This led to Gunter being unable to command the war. But Hagen and Siegfried would accompany her. The alliance army, with the queen leading, seemed to be strengthened. They fought more energetically and tirelessly. The queen was always at the forefront of every battle. Her subordinates also fought very heroically. Upon seeing the enemy troops, the enemy immediately withdrew and no longer dared to look back. The whole army began celebrating that night. Hagen seemed to have encouraged Siegfried, and they hugged each other and danced. However, after that, he accidentally noticed Siegfried being inappropriately close to the queen. Because he was happy in victory, he did not care much about it. He also reminded Siegfried to treat the princess well, as she deserved to be happier. The war ended, but Gunther's kingdom had difficulty recovering. But recently, Gunter had often been quick-tempered with his subordinates. Even Siegfried spoke out against him immediately. Hagen realized something unusual and quickly found out the cause. It turned out that due to the consequences of the previous magic spell, Gunter could not even raise his own sword. The queen was also indifferent to him. In that way, he was just a puppet husband. At the royal party, Siegfried drank too much, and Gunther's younger brother, who was weak, lost his life. Even so, Gunter was helpless. This situation had exceeded control, forcing Hagen to speak up. He knew that if it continued, Gunther's throne would waver. Then, Gunter discovered a dark secret. He found that his queen often went out alone at night. Gunter followed her and discovered that she was in love with Siegfried. It turned out that there was an emotional relationship between them. In the past, Siegfried had once defeated the queen and won her heart. But after that, he wanted a free life, so he left silently. Since the two had met again, they often exchanged glances. The king's honor was made a clown of. Gunter ordered Hagen to handle it. Hagen was caught between choosing to prevent the princess's suffering or to obey the king's command. Previously, Hagen had vowed absolute loyalty to the king of Burgundy. If he didn't handle this, sooner or later Burgundy would change hands. Siegfried was currently very popular among the people. If he intended to rebel, he would definitely be supported, leaving the king helpless. Therefore, Hagen decided to plan to eliminate Siegfried. He invited him to hunt for white deer in the forest, and Siegfried immediately agreed. Siegfried also realized Hagen's intentions on this trip. The battle between the two was inevitable. Although Hagen had been trained, Siegfried's free fighting style made it difficult for him. The two fought continuously, neither inferior to the other. Both understood that to survive, they had to force the other down. Siegfried's fighting power was respectable, worthy of a dragon killer, and Hagen fought with experience and technique. When Hagen thought he had defeated him, Siegfried swiftly thrust his sword and stabbed him. This turned the situation and brought Hagen to the brink of death. When Hagen thought he would die there, a spear stabbed Siegfried in the chest from behind. Gunther ended Siegfried's life, an act that Hagen would never forget. It turned out that Siegfried was not completely immortal as rumored. It was revealed that he had a weakness, a scar on his back. Once struck there, he would die immediately. To keep Gunther from being implicated, Hagen told him to go first. He brought Siegfried's body back and took all the responsibility for killing him in a duel. Siegfried's death made many people heartbroken, especially the two most noble women. Both of them hated Hagen, particularly the princess. She vowed that she would not kill him, but would let him live to witness Siegfried's son be born and submit to him. She would never acknowledge that her husband, whom she loved, was at fault. As for Hagen, he chose to silently accept all the blame to remain loyal to the king, so that no one could make the girl he loved suffer anymore. What do you feel about this movie? Let others know your opinion in the comment section. Thanks for watching, and see you again in the next videos.